Welcome back to the LCS Proving Grounds, powered by Verizon. We had a hell of a game, number one, Rebel, as 100 Thieves Academy came out with a stomp against Immortals Academy, but now we got to see the punch back. We got to see what Immortals Academy are cooking up.
Man, I could not possibly tell you enough about how much aggression should be taken from Luger and given to Immortals. Because, like, how many times do we see
Just
Luger
take a little bit off the top.
Take half of it, man. All of Immortals need just a little bit of a shot in the arm after that one, because it felt like they were a little too slow in the early and then in the later stages of the game, as 100 Thieves were just making strikes around the map pretty much unresponded. I will say, again, Immortals had a couple of really good moments where they were doing some fantastic things, but they played into this group fighting style that 100 Thieves is really good at way too well into this mid and later stages of the game. What I want to see from this team is break this team into pieces. Get something that attacks very quickly, like Hecarim, and get lanes you're comfortable attacking, and then use that pressure, use those lanes breaking apart and separating the side of 100 Thieves to start aggressing against the map, start pulling objectives, and eventually use it to win team fights. When 100 Thieves breaks themselves apart and you're winning in fights, you can see that very, very obviously that they are a much weaker team when they're split into pieces. If you're Immortals, do that. That's all you got to try.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing for me was, we already talked about 100 Thieves getting the game plan they wanted, getting the style that they wanted, but it's also the execution on the map that meant so much to me. It's they were able to execute in the way that they like to, get that objective control early on, get Kenvi roaming around, trying to get help from his teammates, trying to give help to his teammates, and especially, like, I know we were talking about Luger and the aggression he was having. DeMonte was so clutch with a lot of those shockwaves, that zoning tool, that damage coming through from him, that, I mean, it made the player in Pretty that we highlighted at the beginning look like he wasn't able to play the game.
I mean, pretty standardly, my bad. He's
Somebody get the drum kit out.
Yeah, he's, as a standard, he tends to play a little bit slower, tends to play the control mage style a bit more. And DeMonte on Orianna, like, that's a lane that the Victor is okay in. Usually Victor can move out. But again, that was game planning from 100 Thieves. How many times did you see Kenvi just dip his toe into mid lane, say, hey, I'm here, Phoenix stance, I'm going to hit 3 of your minions, and all of a sudden Orianna can move and the other team can't. And that cost a couple of early plays. Like we said, that top side scuttle maybe was aggressible by the side of Potluck, but didn't want to take the chance with mid priority. Same thing happened again towards Dragon. You couldn't really move to Dragon because you lost your mid priority off of the back of just a little bit of pressure from Kenvi. I loved that from 100 Thieves. Spotting that out, not letting Pretty, one of these better players we pointed out from the side of 100 Thieves, or my apologies, from the side of Immortals, come out and access the remainder of the map. That kind of ingenuity, that kind of attention to detail is something you don't necessarily always expect from young teams, but here's 100 Thieves. They're able to get that minutia. Maybe that comes from DeMonte, having that professional experience, being able to help guide some of these guys a little bit.
That prep is looking really good. And the other thing that I have to say is, like, we've known Potluck to be a main carry for this team. He's one of the driving forces in how they like to play. We've already discussed that. They were never on their right foot, right? They had some slash back. They had some things that they were able to get. A lot of the aggression from 100 Thieves being answered to with some retaliation there, but they were never set up. They were never on their 2 feet. They were always reeling. And that's something that's really important here when you're looking at the momentum of a best of 3, because this could be potentially it for Immortals Academy. Like, that is never what you want to be able to say, is that you've gotten 2-0'd by 100 Thieves Academy with no real show up. So I want to see this, game 2 kind of transition more into their favorite style, and make sure you still are building up some of that confidence, because I think that is key to how Immortals are able to come back in this series.
A faster early game not only plays to their style well, but it builds that confidence, like you say. And exactly. I'll say in game 1, it felt like Potluck was a loaded gun that never went off. It's like they cocked it, they were ready to fire the trigger, and then they didn't do it, and then they did it again, and then they didn't do it, and then they did it again, and then they didn't do it. And when they did pull the trigger, it worked out okay. So, like, take that chance in the earlier stage of the game. Potluck can carry the game. You know that you have players that are accustomed to really high tense situations, or players that have been experienced enough to know exactly how to play out things. You got Keith in the bot lane, you got Joey in the bot lane. You're not playing with a bunch of brand new players. This isn't solo queue. You can make these aggressive plays and let your team believe in you. And I think that Immortals just needs that a little bit. Maybe, like you said, if it takes only one gank to get a kill, that confidence could be enough for the entire team to begin playing the way that I know Immortals absolutely can.
And what's crazy to me is, like, the essence of what we saw from Immortals Academy that game was that, double scuttle fight that we got from, I guess it's not a fight, Kenvi just took the double scuttle, but you could see Potluck was waiting. He was sitting there in the top rush, waiting to see if they wanted to take that fight, just ends up standing there and waiting for Kenvy's choices. And Kenvy as well was able to get that tempo, not let that go. And there we have game number one. But that in essence is also what I want to talk about, is like you're highlighting the early game for Immortals Academy. If they can find those pieces that give them a little bit more confidence in that early game, it all comes to that pathing, the execution, especially if Pollock is able to regain some of that.
Yeah, I'll also say I don't want to touch too heavily on draft here for Immortals, but like you counterpicked Orianna with like Victor, and that's fine because Victor's fine into that matchup, does pretty well. And then you counterpick top lane with Cho'Gath. These aren't like hard counters to these champions, and I know that Pretty can pop off. I know that Top Boon can pop off. I've seen them do it before. Like Top Boon was a Worlds player at one point. Like don't take soft counters and then expect the game to go kind of in your favor to take things off. I really want to see them just like you said, Luger was ulting into the middle of a team. That aggression was
literally was going
literally into the middle
them.
of a team. Unfounded aggression. Way more exciting for one thing, but number two, that kind of stuff is what we want to see from Immortals, not 100 Thieves. We want to see 100 Thieves play clustered, play front to back, play standard stuff. We want to see Immortals with the ADC that's going to be ulting into the middle of the team. When do we get that? That's the excitement that I want to see, and I think that's far more fun to watch. Even if Immortal goes down swinging with a lot of that aggression, I would feel far more comfortable with that. As 100 Thieves, I mean, they're up 1-0 in this series. You don't want to get knocked out. You're the 5th seed Academy team. You're not comfortable being knocked out this early in the tournament if you're on the side of IMT.
And that's the other thing I want to go into is the pieces that you were talking about earlier for 100 Thieves Academy. You know, if you can kind of pick them apart, if you can separate them a little bit, they're not getting that consistent 5v5. They're not getting the roams of the solo laners to help out Kenvy. It's where things can really start to roll for you on Immortals Academy. And that's something we didn't see at all. You know, they were opting into those 5v5 fights, the 4v4s, the 3v3s, and not able to kind of find it. You saw Podluck able to find out Luger in some of those team fights just because he's a fast horse and he's got Chem Tank. He can just run through everybody, but you've got to have follow-up for that as well.
That you do. I think there's options in mid lane where you talk about like, okay, TF can break apart a map and get mid priority really quickly. Galio does the exact same thing where you can immediately fall into a river and turn anything into a fight. I think that kind of scrappiness out of your lanes could also be really fun because, like, you know, Keith, he's an experienced player. He's been able to play before. The Varus is something we've seen in his pool before. I know there's a massive highlight of him doing a flash ultimate back in seasons past in LCS. It's one of my favorite to go back and watch because of the way that it was casted. But that's like something he's comfortable on. But if you can get more aggression out of these guys and be able to actually snag that, I feel like that's where IMT will really start to find their groove. As 100 Thieves, the reason we're not even discussing them right now is because game one went exactly as we wanted them to play the game. They played that 5-on-5. They held control of the map pretty much entirely. Nothing really went poorly except for those handful of plays in the mid game that kind of were just like a little bit of overextension or just playing a bit off from what you would have wanted them to try to throw disruption into IMT. And if it weren't for those few plays, that would have gone down as pretty much one of the better wins we've seen for 100 Thieves this entire tournament.
And the other thing I kind of want to highlight on and pick your brain a little bit about Rebel because it's so wrinkly. I want to see what this draft is going to consist of, right? I want to kind of get some of those thoughts going for like what Immortals can take here, because I think that, you know, we've had the tried and true Udi or Hecarim matchup. Depends how you kind of want to play around that one. It is a huge mainstay in the meta right now, but there's some other picks that can go around that can kind of have that early agency for yourself or have that skirmishing agency. And so as you know, we're going into this first draft and especially like trying to find that avenue forward for Immortals Academy, trying to find that early aggression that we want from them so badly. That is the question for me. What are these first couple picks? What is that comfort coming out for Immortals Academy? And how do they play with that in the early parts of the game?
Yeah, there's exactly one pick that comes to my mind for Immortals, and that's Lucian. I think Lucian can be flexed into top. It's not great in top lane. You're usually not going to flex it, but it can go up there in certain matchups, like against GP if that were to come through from the side of 100 Thieves. But more specifically, Pretty good at the Lucian pick. Actually, I think during this Proving Grounds, he's played it. He's one of the few players that's played it and looked the best on it. It scaled really well. The laning phase was okay. And the thing it does better than just about any other pick that you can put in mid lane right now is you can get wave priority no matter what. Even if you have Kenvy dipping his toe into mid lane to help your Orianna, that's not enough. You got to almost like jump in and get the bear stance, flash auto him, something like that. I think a Lucian pick here could be huge for IMT to try to pull. And especially when you're on blue side, you want picks that can be flexible. I know Keith can play that too. I've seen it before. I know the LCS tape is around as Tristana has been missed and gets taken first overall by IMT.
Yeah, so we will have a switch up of sides. IMT Academy on the blue side, 100 Thieves Academy on that red side. That first pick Tristana. You gotta appreciate, you gotta love it, because it is such a strong pick in the meta right now. I do want to highlight, we did get the Thresh ban away by Immortals Academy. Don't want to give a chance for 100 Thieves Academy to kind of scoop that one up. A couple other bans that are going to be very targeted. The Nidalee as well, taken away from Kenvi. Renekton for that top lane matchup, and the Tenacity on the other side. Get a little bot lane focus with that Gnar obviously having to be banned away. But having the Rel secured here for 100 Thieves Academy sets Poom up really nicely in the bot lane, and then they combine it with the Kai'Sa.
Interestingly, also, the Nidalee ban, actually, I'm curious if this indicates that Potluck's going to go to Lilia. Because Lilia, like, when you respawn from anybody, I know Kenvi can play the Nidalee, but, like, there's not a ton in the meta outside of, like, Hecarim specifically that has ever been historically really good into Lilia. And it might be something, nope, they're just going to go to Hecarim.
Nope.
Why wouldn't they do that? Okay. This is my preference for Potluck anyway. I was like, maybe that's why the Nidalee is getting banned away in this particular set. It feels like that ban isn't very useful, at least to start things off, but I'm perfectly fine with it, as they get a lot of engage in a fantastic setup for team fight here. You've got dive potential, you've got AoE, you got early aggression with Tristana. This is the kind of play that I want from IMT. When you pair together early on in the game, this team looks a lot stronger than what we saw in the previous one.
And the Orianna rounded out for Pretty is going to be really nice for those team fights if they get to that point and are still at that even situation. Damonte was really good on it last time around, but this time around, we get the Nocturne locked in for 100 Thieves Academy.
Now, here's the thing. Nocturne is flexible top and jungle. Only Kenvi's played it. Something that would be really interesting to take at R4 here would be Volibear, because Tenacity's only played that champion, but if these two can flex it at all, like, they're both good in both positions, and there's not much that you can do to counterpick a Nocturne lane or a Volibear lane. They do different things, and they'll win against just about anything you can pick on that top side for top boon. So they could do that and then flex between the jungle and the top position if they really wanted to, as it's junglers that are being pinched off. They're actually assuming on the side of IMT, if they ban junglers here, the idea is like, okay, if the pool is for Nocturne to go jungler, if the plan is for Nocturne to go jungler, then you're forcing that to happen. There's no flexibility. And if it's to go top, then you're pinching off the jungle pool. So there's nothing left to take for the side of 100 keys. So that's the strategy, I think. They could also split this. I've seen that before, where you go top and jungle to make sure one of your least favorite of both pools is taken away.
I do also want to highlight the fact that we are getting the Nautilus Alistair ban from 100 Thieves Academy. Don't want to give over a strong CC duo to that Tristana, but I'm sure there will be one that sneaks through anyways. On the other side, the Victor gets banned away, as well as the Udyr. So banning out some of that comfort pick, at least for the Udyr for Kenvi, but as well as that mid lane priority in the mid lane for Damonte on the Victor. It is a Sylas, though, Rebel. We got a Sylas.
That we do. Flexible again alongside the Nocturne, at least a little bit. It's typically played into tanks, although you don't see it that often into Sion, so you can't imagine that one coming through. I have to imagine that's going to Damonte as a response to the Orianna, which I'm perfectly fine with. I feel like Damonte has stepped into a control mage pattern that I don't like. Back on his like Echo Fox, Delta Fox days, back in like the Challenger series, he wasn't ever really that big of a control mage player. I like to see his more aggressive stuff, and so I like the Sylas is going to be coming out here, and a lot of engage that can come through. You think about Rel, Sylas. Ooh. Okay.
We got the Braum in here. Oh no, but it's immediately with that set is going to be so good at that tankier front line. But I still really like this bot lane from Immortals Academy. As you said earlier, getting a huge amount of priority down there, having that aggression and the combination of the satchel charge for the Tristana, but as well as the passive stacks, the Winter's Bite there for Joey on the Braum. Like, you've got to be really careful on the side of Luger and Poom not to get aggressed on in that way.
Yeah, it's a little bit tough. Braum is really strong as of the last couple of patches, and I like that they
those
pair.
Patches do well.
Yeah, it does. the additional CC you could throw onto a Halo Blades champion like Tristana is excellent to be able to pull that out. And even better is, like, right now 100 Thieves has like a counter engage comp where like Nocturne can go in after ultimate from Set is going to be used into Sion as he comes in, same with Hecarim or something like that. So what this is like, if you choose to engage ahead of time or counter engage, you can then re-engage into the other team with a Braum ultimate and slow down a lot of these melee champions, as the only ranged champion had on the side of 100 Thieves is this Kai'Sa.
Yeah, it's going to be a little hard. Maybe that, the aggression that Luger showed last time going to help out, because he's going to have a lot of bodies around him this time when they're all in the fight. So we'll see how that works out. It is going to be Kenvi on the Nocturne, though, and that set tenacity up there for against the Scion, which I think is gonna be an interesting matchup in its own. A little bit different than the wet noodle fight. I feel like Set can have some interesting roams and things like that, but it's still gonna be a lot of the same that we saw last time, right? It's gonna be these junglers leading the charge. A lot of the focus around there being different in terms of getting the resources onto Potluck. Can be trying to help out his team, even trying to get ahead on this Nocturne as Rebel. We've got game 2 ready and raring to go as we hit the rift for the second time. Immortals Academy looking to get some ground in this best of 3, not get knocked out immediately 2-0 to 100 Thieves Academy, but 100 Thieves Academy want to keep on swinging, want to keep on boxing, want to keep their run in Proving Grounds alive.
I love what happened in this draft from both teams, because it feels like on one side, like IMT, we talked about how they need to put some more aggression into the opposition. Whereas like 100 Thieves, they come out with this and, I was like, okay, standard team fight. They've got a scrappy composition with a weaker early game jungle.
Yeah,
like,
they do.
That throws so much volatility into what this 100 Thieves roster is going to be able to do. And yes, if you get a couple kills, if you're able to roll to start with, this composition is one that just simply will not stop ever rolling you. But you do have to get there. So they're relying a bit more on their individual skill, which is not low, but I will say it does go at least a little bit away from that 5-on-5. If you see this team start to come together, that 5-on-5 still does look very mean, but you do have to put the pieces together a lot more than what you saw in the previous game. There isn't that same kind of like, okay, we've got like Udyr or we've got Alistar alongside Orianna for ball delivery, nothing like that in terms of this composition. For the most part, you're looking for 3, 4, 5 members to get together. And on the other side, they have the opposite, where it's like, okay, Rom, Trist, a lot of aggression. Ekram, Ori, a lot of aggression. Throw Scion at either of those, you got a mean fight. There's a lot to be like about both of these compositions. Specifically, I think IMT's looks much better from what we saw last game.
Yeah, I think they're setting themselves up a lot better with the individual pieces, but as well as a whole, right? I do think they had a strong composition last time, but it came down to execution. I still do feel like that's going to be a big piece to what we see in this game in specific, and how Immortals Academy can try and pick apart 100 Thieves Academy, but they've got some decent tools themselves. I do like the change up this time around. We are getting the opposite side starts for these junglers, maybe a little bit of difference in how we see that focus go down, but it's going to be a tough early game. It's going to be an interesting early game to see where that focus goes.
And I just want to kind of focus in on this top lane matchup real quick, because we talked about Tenacity having that aggressive play, and in this tournament hasn't been as aggressive. I know the Aatrox came out, but that was about it. We knew this guy as like a level 1 check with Gangplank player. We knew this guy as like, I am going to auto attack you near to death to start, even if it costs me my entire health bar, back when he was on 100 Thieves Next. And I feel like a little bit of that has been lost in the Academy season. His aggression has been tapered a bit, so this is a callback to it. We get the set. Last game was amazing for the Scion, had that individual lane advantage where you're pulling a lot more farm, mostly because of roams that had come out from top boon. But Tenacity is confident in his play, being able to take the set pick, not really well played or not played very kindly around the world for the most part, and bringing it into this Scion as this team fighter and this lane aggressor where some damage can be built.
And that's where I was just about to say is the lane aggression here. You're already seeing the wave push back in for Tenacity, and he was able to get that quick back there, get back into the lane, try to keep up that aggression on top and try to keep up that priority so he can get to help Kenby. But we do get yeah, I was gonna say Potluck's looking. I don't think anything's gonna come of it here, but they definitely want to try and focus down towards this mid lane. Apparently, as that's a lot of focus, at least towards the mid lane for both of these teams already in this series. It's just gonna be a nice, calm early game though for us.
That it is. A little bit of a faster clear here from the likes of Potluck, but not going to step out too heavily. We didn't actually make mention also that Kenby's got exhaust in this matchup, which makes some sense into the likes of the Hecarim, as you don't want to get aggressed in this very early or die quickly on this Nocturne pick. That doesn't bode well for the Nocturne. So just going to take that defensive summoner. Gets a little AD to start with. Do notice Tenacity's early wave push and that level 3 crash that we talked about, getting that back very quickly, also led to a ward going into that. So they're tracking the Hecarim right now, making sure that Potluck can't find this early aggression that IMT's rock was built upon.
Yeah, and you're already seeing the fruits of the labor for Tenacity in the lane, just getting a ton of trade back damage on top boon. He's got a sword and a shield now, Rebel. He's gonna be feeling really good. I feel like you're set up in that situation. But in all actuality, you know, it does lean more into how 100 Thieves Academy like to play. They like to try and get that priority. They like to try and roam, help out Kenby. And as you said earlier, or at least foreshadowed a bit, Kenby can't get behind on this Nocturne. He just becomes a paranoia bot. But he's going to find Potluck taking his chicken nuggies. He does not want that to happen, although Potluck says they're mine anyways.
Now, the Raptors, unfortunately, getting snuck away. This is off the back of Potluck. Again, having the faster clear speed, getting out on the map a little bit faster, as Potluck was able to cut through his own jungle, look for that topside invade. It sneaks away that camp, like you said, perhaps ordered far too many from the side of McDonald's. As a few did go over to Kenby at least, but it's still 2 camps available for Potluck to aggress against the entire bottom side and look for maybe the Dragon, as they had also used that opportunity to spot Kenby heading to topside. So Dragon might be a little bit of an opening right here, as their lane is kind of in the middle. It looks like on bottom side as far as waves go, and then of course the Hecarim being down there, as well as Orianna actually having a good amount of pressure over the melee match at mid lane, should mean that they've got a good enough pressure on bot side to maybe look for Dragon.
And I was just about to say, like, that early objective focus from 100 Thieves in that first game was really nice. They were able to set up that soul pretty early on, and that's what I would like to see here for Immortals Academy, because I think that sets their team fights up. That sets exactly how they want to play the game up, and we already see it started up by Potluck.
That it is. Able to be snuck away. Now, Kenby did back and is heading down towards his bottom side. He's pretty low right now, too, and with Exhaust, it could be that play. Here's Keith and Joey, though, gonna get covered by his bot lane. Kenby, I don't know why he's backing right now. Just back. Oh, he wandered there from topside. My apologies. I thought he had come from base, and I was like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. He didn't buy anything. But now I'm seeing, okay, that's exactly what happened as bot side. Again, they had Bryo mid. They could just walk in and grab the jungle. So now the back timer from Kenvy's a little delayed, as they're staying for Scuttle Crab. So Kenvy will hit level 6 pretty quickly here on one of these next few camps, and that ultimate's going to come out before Hecarim is really in position to aggress against. As you see, going to bottom side, it should be Gromp, maybe Gromp and Blue at maximum, and they could try to put some pressure onto Keith and Joey down here.
I would love to see that level 6 Paranoia come out, try to get some influence going early on as this Nocturne, try to get a little bit of gold going for 100 Thieves, because as we've kind of mentioned too, like, you've got this standard stock composition here for IMT. They've got a lot of strength when you get to those 15-minute, 20-minute fights. If you're looking at those objectives, if you go into there even, especially as the Nocturne, like, I feel like you're not setting yourself up for success. Joey, oh no, he uses the shield on the opposite side. There's going to be a lot of damage traded back by Keith, though, onto Poom. Has to run away as well.
That it is. Now, Nocturne got spotted out, unfortunately, on a ward coming in here, so they were able to play it defensively enough between Keith and Joey to get away from that. So the plan was there, foiled, however, from the side of Joey and Keith, making sure the aggression's not going to be there, as it's an immediate cross map from Kenby to come up to top side, maybe look for what will be the top camps, and clearing up towards Tenacity, who could be, again, another one of these members you could attack. It's really good side lanes to attack when you consider who it is that you've got there, when you've got, like, Set and Rel, 2 very high CC targets, to pair with the likes of the Nocturne. At minimum, if that Nocturne is going to get into that lane, probably going to force a flash.
Yeah, and you see that path there, a little bit of farming coming out from Kenby. I really like this on the map. You got to see Pollock looking for Demonte in the mid lane, but Silas is a slippery fellow. Get out of those situations pretty quickly, and it's just going to be a continuation of farm here. No real fighting, no real skirmishing, still 0-0 past 8 minutes, but we do have that one objective secured by Immortals Academy, and another 3 minutes for the next Dragon. We do have a Rift Herald, and that's what I want to focus on here. I would love to see one of these teams try to take this Rift Herald, try to up that tempo a little bit.
Could be the play. Topoon now is responding to a TP that comes out from Tenacity, where he gets a Vamp Scepter and as well as a pair of boots. And the Bramble Vest doesn't make it super easy to heal up from the damage that comes through from Sion. The bigger thing is mid lane now. Oh. Sion's ult's here.
Unstoppable coming. He's going to try. Oh, Topoon just a little bit too close to that wall. Is not going to connect there into the mid lane, but did get that nice roam, got that communication. Kenby getting knocked up here. I don't know if that's exactly the play. Paranoia comes out. The Shockwave available for Demonte, but Kenby getting very, very low. First blood goes over to Topoon. Demonte wants to follow it up. Going to get knocked up here, dragged out. Demonte very, very low. Doesn't have the Kingslayer, and that's a 2-kill lead developed by Immortals Academy.
Man, okay, so I want to give a ton of props to Topoon. For a minute here, when we see the replay, we'll get a chance maybe to talk about it, but what a play right there. This is the aggression. It was not off of Potluck, but instead off of a Topoon roam. He ducked into Fog of War right here, and they thought he had backed, which is why Tenacity doesn't move. Kenby moves in here to put some aggression, but more so, I think, just to fix the wave, as Demonte is forced to flash right now, and then these two are able to win the fight afterwards, even without the shockwave, because, again, no vision. Kenby walks directly into the queue. They never saw Sion leave. Like, you know,
but he knew.
Yeah, and then afterwards, of course, it was very close as like Envy nearly gets the kill, and then the stun up was actually huge from Damonte, but no mana left, which means you can just run him down at this point too. These champions are able to get the kill onto Damonte and the shutdown necessary to get Pretty a little further ahead. This whole play was an attempt for Rift Herald. They just wanted to shove out mid lane and make sure that that wave was gone so they could move Tenacity, who didn't have a lane opponent, into the Rift Herald pit, but instead they find themselves collapsed on by the likes of Pretty and Topoon, and this early lead goes to the side of IMT.
And we get the lane swap coming out, going to that top side for Luger and Poom. We're getting the Tenacity Topoon fight in the bot side now. And I do really like the movements from both these teams, but man, Immortals Academy just had the heads-up play, and unfortunately for Kenvi, just gets caught out in that situation. But I love the synergy we're seeing from Pretty and Topoon, especially the mechanics that we saw early on from Pretty in those moments on that Orianna with that Shockwave, with those movements. Yes, it did not connect, at least for the Shockwave, but Damonte was forced to flash and led to all the other wonderful things that came to fruition for Immortals.
That it did. As first ultimate for Nocturne, not going to find too much. Exhaust was also burnt, which means Kenvi can't really step into the river. No flash and no exhaust means it's kind of difficult. As top lane, it's going to get shoved in. That's to be expected. Tristana has much better clear, and it was Rift Herald that got looked at, and it was taken here by Potluck. So they used that, and they're just going to drop it mid immediately. I think they're going to use this to try to not only pull plates, which is defensed against by the side of 100 Thieves, they could look for a dive, and Dragon is also on the board here in just a couple of seconds.
Yeah, they've got 5 members here. Tower is not going to go down just yet. Keith trying to get a couple last autos in, but Damonte wants to go in. Actually uses the Onslaught of Shadows out of there, as Damonte didn't want to get caught by the rest of Immortals Academy. But the tower still stands, Rebel.
It does. Able to keep that one up. The shift into Dragon is the far more important bit. As the Rift Herald gets a bunch of gold, this is looking like a far better version of Immortals. See, this is what I wanted in game 1. They find early advantages across the map. They confirm a couple of kills. It's not around Potluck, but it was around their world top laner here in Topoon. They're able to come into bottom side, and they snag away this Dragon as well. Everything coming up Immortals at the moment, and now even Topoon's going to be able to save a couple of plates on top side, preventing Luger and Boom from getting any additional gold to come into this game with.
It's always just so impressive how much Dan can do. Like, it's honestly so impressive. First tower does finally fall for Immortals Academy. They get that mid lane outer tower. Looking at this bot lane now, as they've been roaming a couple members down here, and Tenacity is all by his lonesome. This could be a nice little dive being set up by Immortals Academy. See what Tenacity can do to deal with it. There's the face breaker. Paranoia comes out. Doesn't even have the showstopper to go off there, as he was stunned down, CC'd up, and taken out.
TP might have been a bit much, but I do appreciate, again, IMT. They're finding these aggressive plays across the map, finding dive to work right there. Not even a Haymaker ends up getting thrown, unfortunately, by Tenacity, as the fully charged W might have been able to keep him alive a couple more seconds, as it's just now a cover coming in. So topside gets covered by Topoon as he ults top and then was able to clear the rest of that wave. And then Tenacity comes into bottom lane, gets bullied off by this combination of Trist and Braum, which makes sense. There's a lot of CC, good amount of damage there. And the dive now earns a couple more plates as well as a kill against Tenacity. IMT ripping away control of this early game. This is where we wanted them to be in the previous one, and they've fixed the mistakes that they've had. The standard compositions got pretty ahead. You got the early game pressure. You got the first 2 dragons. This is everything that IMT has wanted. Yeah,
it is night and day comparatively to that first game. You just feel like they're feeling a lot more comfortable here on this blue side with this composition they've gotten for themselves. Also, feel pretty confident with Pretty's 40 CS lead in the mid lane, I gotta say.
You're pretty confident, you said?
Yeah. I know what I did.
Yeah, somehow this joke never gets old, and yet it was old when we first said it. But,
yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, part of it comes down to, like, you have the interaction between Orianna and the likes of the Sylas, where, like, Sylas has got kill pressure, and the only way really to break Sylas out is to try to fight or force flash away from Orianna. None of that pressure has come through because you went for kind of a weaker early game jungler, looking for the level 6, looking for some of those ganks with the ultimate, and just hasn't come through from Kenvi. It's not that the fight's not there. Again, when this composition puts its pieces together, there's some really mean combinations that can come out from, like, a Nocturne ultimate, a Tenacity ulting a Scion into the other team, and the damage threats aren't really there super, like, heavily when you think Orianna Shockwave is the big one, and then Tristana. If you bring down one of those two, especially if the Shockwave hasn't been used yet, the fight does look a lot more approachable from 100 Thieves, but this game just gets harder and harder as IMT has played for this early game. You get your carries into a good place, and now even your front line is starting to look good in the Scion and the Hecarim as well.
Yeah, we're still seeing the lane swaps still available here. Kenvi is actually roamed up, and they might be looking for Keith, but he does have the rocket jump available, does have a little bit of extra. Yeah, I was gonna say as well as the Glacial Fissure there. So best laid plans of my cement. Keith say no way, Jose. Didn't expect the Kenby, but there's Potluck, the double TP coming in for 100 Thieves Academy. Is it going to be too late as Kenby has already gotten Keith, but the rest of the fight, the showstopper, the team fight potential. You thought it was on Immortals, but it's all 100 Thieves.
You see, okay, it's a mousetrap, right? And there's no cheese. So then they're like, all right, Luger, walk out there. Suddenly, there's cheese in the mousetrap gets the spring. As now, okay, you have an immediate jump in from Keith, who's able to come in on top when Luger is able to leave the bush. They knew he was here. They also knew he was there because the Q that tagged. And then here comes Kenby. Unfortunately, Luger doesn't even go down the ultimate, and no damage outside of just the Hecarim actually comes in. And Tenacity's teleport into ultimate right here is huge. The Strike Breaker ends up setting up an additional 2 kills for this team as 100 Thieves finally finds a punch back. And what would you know it? Off the back of clustering their team together.
Yeah, I have to say, the push and pull in that fight, right? Like, you've got so much CC. You've got so many things that could go wrong when you're clustered like that against this 100 Thieves roster. You have this Rel. You have this set. You even have the Silas putting down some CC as well. So you've got to be really careful how you approach those fights. No matter how strong we said Immortals Academy's squad is, Tenacity just face checks a push into 3 members and eventually will go down, and Pretty gets the kill.
Yes, it looked like he was trying to step into River to try to put some additional wards down, but IMT beat them here as they were able to push past all of the warding that had come through. So you lose one of your biggest tools. The Showstopper wasn't available anyway, so the team fight was already going to be difficult from 100 Thieves, but now no Tenacity, no TP because of the play that had just happened on top side, and the rest of this team being down a decent amount of gold means they probably cannot contest. So this is just going to be 3rd Dragon going the way of Immortals, as now Immortals Academy staring down the barrel of what will likely be an Infernal Dragon and an Infernal Soul that's going to be coming up here, which will be really tough to deal with as your 2 damage sources now become exceptionally strong here on the side of Immortals, and 100 Thieves would have a tough time climbing past that one.
Summoner's Rift has made it up to us, Rebel. They've given us an Infernal Soul for the second game. We'll see what happens, though, as 100 Thieves were so good at controlling those objectives in game number 1, have had really no control up until this point. This will be the 3rd Dragon going over Soul Point of that Infernal Soul we were talking about over to Immortals Academy.
Yeah, the set pick hasn't been able to find its footing, I don't think, within the confines of this game outside of that one really good team fight. The Nocturne kind of fell behind a little bit early, which was to be expected, but wasn't able to accomplish much outside of that second ultimate. Again, that fight has been good, and they're taking Rift Herald to respond a bit, but again, when you think about what's going to happen in a pure 5-on-5 where everything is set up, and you've got a good Orianna ultimate to use, you've got a Tristana who's capable of putting some damage in as well, and all of this CC and AoE from these tanks that are going to be available, it's really tough to imagine a world where 100 Thieves is able to come out on top of that, barring just like a pick before the fight or something like that. So here, IMT is going to control the pacing of this game from this point on, and more or 100 Thieves has to kind of just take what is given to them from the side of IMT. So it's up to them to be able to capitalize on those short little distances, because if this Infernal Soul goes over to IMT with this kind of a composition, this game might just be callable at that point.
Yeah, you've got to really be careful about setting yourself up for the later game success here. IMT definitely want to get that going. They put a little bit of aggression into the enemy side jungle, a little bit of invade, a little blue buff for Pretty, as trying to find out Kenby. Kenby's going to use the blast cone to get over the wall. They do have this Rift Herald available. It's going to be really hard for them to use it at this point, as their mid lane tower, tier 2, is getting blasted down.
They're moving this Tristana around pretty well. Keith has been able to accomplish this on a couple of towers. Bottom lane, they pulled every single plate off. They did the top side and pulled a couple of plates off as well. And now mid lane, they've been able to siege down twice with Keith and find 2 towers in mid. Again, can you further advancing this gold lead that is held by IMT, but also making sure that this melee Silas has to respond to waves very deep into their own base to prevent any kind of collapse.
Oh, I thought Kenby was going to be able to get that one. Doesn't get the distance there on that stride breaker, but will be just another buff going over, and that's 2 back-to-back for Immortals, who have just been pressing up their advantage here, about that 4K gold in the lead, and really feeling themselves.
That they are. And again, playing around Pretty really well. To say that this guy is a surprise, I don't think would come for many people, but many people might not know where he came from. Coming from like EU Masters, some of the academy teams from the European region. This guy, I remember when he got signed, I was like, I don't really know who he is, but has obviously made a name for himself being an incredible mid laner, and especially when you're on one of these scaling picks, these standard mages, and you get him to now 200 CS at 19 minutes into the game with 2 kills and 2 assists, you can rely rely on Pretty to be one of these very, very good late game players in the mid lane. So this is something that you can hang your hat on for the side of IMT. As also, you think about who else is here. You think Keith, you think Joey, you think Potluck, you think Tapoon, all players who have played professionally before, and it's Pretty who's the guy that we keep coming back to because of just how good he's been.
Yeah, exactly that. And it was interesting to see his lack of influence in that first game, being this mainstay, this guy who has all this KP, all this first blood, all this damage percentage for his team, but just really was non-existent in that first game. Now he's got himself set up. Now he's got a potential here to really carry those team fights, be a menace with those shockwave placements. So I want to see how Immortals continue to kind of try and snowball this lead. We've obviously seen they're really aggressive. They're always trying to make those invades, always trying to find catch outs if they can on 100 Thieves. But I have to say, from the side of 100 Thieves, like, yes, they've given up a little bit, but they haven't given up the whole mile yet. They still have a lot of strength developing for themselves as well.
They have a Kai'Sa who's getting there. Sylas also will become an absolute menace into backline when you have the opportunity, especially if you're able to get onto Tristana, who is not particularly well fed in this game. So like Tristana isn't ahead of the curve comparative to gold for anybody. So Sylas actually still has an okay assassination target, but this gold continues to trickle into their pockets because there's nothing they can do to respond. As Tenacity just has to sit there and watch as Tapoon takes away that top lane tower and immediately removes another source, another beacon here for the side of 100 Thieves to be able to try to hold the remainder of this map. And we're about a minute out now, Mr. Mizzell. We've had a little bit of a lull state for a while. 7 kills in 21 minutes is not what we're used to in a lot of these games. We're usually accustomed to quite a bit of aggression. But here, we're seeing that come to fruition with this patience from both squads, wanting to play for the later game, wanting to play for Infernal Soul. As Rift Herald gets dropped mid, they're going to try to shove this out, put pressure on, and use that to walk into the river to get some warding.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like second Rift Herald not going to do too much at this instant. Might not even going to make it to the tower. Just was trying to provide a little bit of distraction. The distraction goes down a little too early, so you've still got 30 seconds to set up for this dragon, getting that control vision down, trying to get the setup for yourself that you want for 100 Thieves Academy.
And at minimum, they do have the shallow warding available, and they've denied shallow warding to the side of IMT for 100 Thieves, but IMT still controls the river pretty vastly right now. So the only thing you can think is Tenacity's got one good teleport warding. Here comes the engage.
They're trying to find out Keith, but they have found Potluck instead. There's the combo. There's Tenacity. Onslaught Shadows goes into the back. Potluck getting really low. Potluck goes down. Luger's going to get the kill. That's a double for the ADC of 100 Thieves Academy, but it's left to their own devices here as Tenacity flashes over the wall away from Tapoon, but Tapoon flashes back and gets the kill for himself. That's going to be a 2 for 3 in favor of Immortals Academy, and that could just be the soul.
And the fight got split really quickly here as it looked on the bottom side like Luger had something going, but Kendi gets brought down. Poon gets completely denied the ultimate as the re-engage is going to come in from Potluck. And I thought this was the moment the fight was breaking, but this top side gets completely eviscerated on bottom side. Demonte and Luger are able to bring down Joey, but look, every member of the top side just gets completely wrecked as Tenacity loses the fight to Tapoon, and your damage can't walk in anymore. Keith and Pretty were still available the entire time. Their health bar's barely dented, as that's certainly Infernal Soul going to the side of IMT. That was probably just mostly a gold check, as well as, again, 100 Thieves. They got to play as 5 more than anything. So we're getting more replay. Why do I have a feeling that this is a steal if we're getting this extended of a replay? Why are the cameras coming down? Why is the boss music not playing?
No, it was secured there by Immortals Academy. Yes, you were thinking maybe. I do have to say, like, Pretty's positioning in that one was huge. The shockwave to come across in the back after the fight's kind of already broken apart rather. Like, that is so good to stay in the moment, stay in that situation. And Keith's rocket jump out was also huge, denying the engage from Kemby, denying that first pickoff to kind of snowball into the rest of them. And now you've got this Infernal Soul. You've got almost a 6K gold lead for yourself, and you've got to be really worried for 100 Thieves Academy's composition going into these fights.
To come back into this one would be a near impossible feat. It would be nearly a miracle, I would say, from the side of 100 Thieves to come back from how far down they are, and especially with this Infernal Soul being given over to the side of IMT as 100 Thieves. Like I said, they play better as 5. They haven't been able to find much of a 5-on-5 here during the course of this game. I keep saying it. I'll keep saying it the entire time. And IMT's aggression in the early game, much better than what we saw in game number 1, as they're looking to take control of this game number 2. There's not much hope to kind of have. I will say Luger has been playing immaculately. Demonte's also played pretty well, but one Kai'Sa's not going to be able to match you up against the likes of this massive Scion, this huge Orianna, and as well as Keith, who was able to pick up a bit in that last fight.
and they're just doing the Baron now because you have to force.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, 100 Thieves are going to TP Tenacity into the fight, but if this Baron goes down with this Soul, I mean, that's huge for Immortals. They could just sweep the game here if they want to, but do 100 Thieves Academy want to fight over this? They're positioning around the backside of the pit. They do have ways in here. You have Paranoia available for Kenvi. You have flashes available. You can get over the wall, but Immortals Academy just want to go for the fight. They were baiting it out all along. Immediately, Poom is forced to go away. There's the onslaught of shadows. Kenvi's on the back line, but he's all by himself. There comes the showstopper from Tenacity. Now Luger follows up, but the health bars for IMT. The target focus from IMT Academy is too strong to handle, and IMT will take that fight. They clean up 2. They don't get the 3rd, but they're right back to the Baron.
That fight right there, if 100 Thieves is on even gold or at least a little bit closer from where they were, if there's no Infernal Soul for IMT, this looks so good from 100 Thieves. They're able to get onto the right target. Poom nearly gets burst out. The ultimate from Hecarim doesn't do much, and Kenvi and Tenacity let a perfect engage in the backline. Then Demonte and Luger get to join them. Look at that. If they've got damage, this fight looks so good for them, but they can't make it happen. The gold is not there. The items are not there, as Infernal Soul and now Baron are going to give this Immortals roster what is likely to be game number 2 and take us to a game number 3 against the side of 100 Thieves. It's just a matter of now closing that out. Like you said, I think you like to say, you know, crossing T's, dotting I's, making sure that this game's going to get wrapped up in a nice, neat little bow and not take us into 36-minute range.
Yeah, that's what you would expect from a lead like this from Immortals Academy, but you never know. It is League of Legends. I do just love the fact that this has turned into a boxing match, Rebel. We had swings coming out left and right from 100 Thieves in that first game. Now Immortals Academy are completely dominating this game here in the second game.
Yeah.
That's the paranoia used by Kenvi, trying to help out a little bit for Demonte. He goes there on to Keith, ends up finding Pretty as well. He's just a Nocturne, though, as it's already Demonte finding Joey, but can they find any more? Kenvi's down. That big shockwave from Pretty is going to slam home that nail in the coffin as Demonte tries his darndest, but will be left to the fishes. And that's got to be it. That's got to be Immortals Academy taking game number 2 off a triple kill and an ace for Potluck.
100 Thieves makes these fights look so close, but it doesn't matter. The whole time, it doesn't matter. The shockwave from Pretty wasn't used, and it ends up buying a couple of kills. Keith was alive the entire time, and even these tanks are just doing way too much damage. Yeah, you find Joey off the back of like 3 or 4 of the resources you needed to win that fight, but it does not matter. 100 Thieves, they can't make the skirmish comp work. They end up losing the early game. Like you said, the first 5 rounds of that boxing match went very heavily to the side of IMT, as they're the only ones throwing punches.
Ooh, we got a series, Rebel. This is exactly what we were wanting to kick off our day, and Immortals Academy make it so. Playing exactly how they wanted to, controlling the map, getting that early advantage that we said was so heavily important for them, and they slam home the dub.
That they do. Really impressive, the adaptation that was made between Game 1 and Game 2. Game 1, it was passive, it was relaxed, it felt like they weren't finding any aggression, they were just like slow to everything, and Immortals just kind of got ran over, and in this one, they took everything into their own hands. They aggressed against mid with Tapoon. They got everybody across the map. Pretty got this massive advantage. They were winning team fights. They were forcing team fights, and everything was working out in their favor. I love the way they played. And if we get game 100 Thieves versus game 2 Immortals, that's going to be an absolute banger to close out this series.
It absolutely is. And that's where I got to turn my eyes over to 100 Thieves Academy, right? Getting kind of smacked at that second game, not really being able to find the ground that they wanted to fight back. And, you know, you pick up this Nocturne for Kenvi, you saw the tools, the execution was there, the gold lead was not. So you got to think, is this going to be a similar composition? Do we just go back to game 1 where they had that kind of team fight synergy? They had a little bit of stabilization in their lanes, and that's what I'm looking for. I want to see what the draft holds for us in this game number 3, because it's going to be so telling to how these teams mentally are preparing for this third game. We do got to take a little break, though, Rebel. You got to calm down just a little bit, as we're going to be heading into game 3 after a short little break.
Verizon believes everyone deserves the best. That's why we start with 5G from America's most reliable network.
Verizon 5G is next level.
Then give families plans to mix and match, so you only pay for what you need starting at $35.
It's so much more than this, a great network.
And offer the best in entertainment on select unlimited plans, like Disney+, Hulu, and ESPN+, as well as Discovery+, with a Galaxy S21 Plus 5G when you buy one. There's no reason to settle for less than the best. Only from Verizon.